I'm not a ranger yet, but I will be in the future.
Once a ranger,
Always a ranger.
Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Once a Ranger. This week, we'll be doing a special 3 episodes instead of the usual 2 to lead up to the big Green with Evil saga, which we are all very, very excited for. So let's dive right into it. I'm Minhas. I'm joined by Akil, Nick, and Nev. And we're going to start with episode 14, Foul Play in the Sky.
Yes, I'm so excited.
I love how this episode opens on like Zach and this whole Angela thing, and we think that's going to happen, and then we ignore that for the rest of the episode.
It just never happens again.
And we cut to Bulk and Skull, like legitimately sitting on a park bench watching planes take off. Mm-hmm. Like, what a wholesome hobby to have,
right?
Yeah. I love this, but like, because this is when we're really starting to see Bulk and Skull get out of their bully era. We regress in the next episode, but I feel like that episode was supposed to air earlier because it's like really out of
I had the same idea when I was watching it.
Really felt out of place. But one thing I really liked about Bulk and Skull, so continuing with the Skull crush that we kind of had earlier in the episode, he sees it and he's like, hey, hey, Kimberly, and he's like smiling, and then they like run to her, and Bulk is like, can we fly your pain? And then Skull's like, oh yeah, that's also a good idea. So clearly he was running to Kimberly just because he was so excited to see her. It was so adorable.
Yeah, Skull is definitely the Kimberly fan, but Bulk is the plane fan. I feel like he like knows like by the tail number what all these planes are and where they go. And then in the next 2 episodes, he's wearing a pilot's cap. So it's like he's a plane guy.
Was that a pilot's cap? I was like wondering what was that?
Like the little ear flaps and like a thing for the goggles on top. So like,
I thought it was
this guy
like
wants to be a pilot.
It's like a helmet thing. No, is that like
bikers
wear that helmet?
Someone look it up. To me.
Yeah. As soon as you say it makes sense. But then that disproves our theory, me and Nick's theory.
Right.
What's your theory
about them regressing?
Yeah.
Well, no.
You know, I thought it
could be a bully.
Yeah. Well, no, I mean, like they were. We'll get to it when we get to those episodes.
Yeah,
but
okay.
I really did enjoy that. Like they were just kind of not trying to mess with anybody. Yeah, like they kind of slid into the situation. Like, oh, let's get on the plane. Let's manipulate the situation to get on. And like, what a cool uncle he is to be like, yeah, whatever. Like,
they're your friends, even though Kimberly is clearly like, I don't want them.
Yeah, I was like, he's very inattentive to Kimberly's response to these two. He's just like, oh, bring your friends along. She clearly was like, nah, they're not my friends. I'll like them. And he was like, that's okay. You know,
but this is the beginnings of like Bulk and Skull starting to like actively just hang out with the Power Rangers. They end up doing that a lot. I don't think they ever like really become friends, but there is like a contingency with them. They like often are talking to each other, hanging out together, and it's not always like butting heads.
Yeah.
I feel like if Kimberly didn't show up to fly her uncle's plane, they would have just sat there for the rest of the afternoon watching planes.
They would have which is nice.
It's
especially
nice to think about.
Skull is so wholesome too, where he's like, I would be a perfect pilot because everyone says I'm an airhead.
That's such a good line. I love that one.
Yeah.
I was like, oh my god, Skull, that's so sad.
Oh man,
it was a really high quality joke though. I was laughing at that one. But I want to go back to something you said, Akil, which is you mentioned Angela, because this is the introduction of Angela, who is a consistent pursuit of Zach's.
Okay,
yeah,
all right.
This isn't a one-off of like Melissa or whatever.
Okay,
I remembered Melissa.
I'm glad she's coming back. I thought like Zach bumped into her and spilled milkshakes everywhere. I thought that was the end of it.
Yeah, it's like it's interesting too because Zach, I guess he portrays himself as the smooth one, but like when it comes to Angela, that's obviously not how it works, as we see in the episode where she's really harsh.
Yeah, it's really harsh. But I think I agree with you when you say Zach portrays himself that way, because at the dance episode, he's also like, oh, I have all the moves, but then he gets outshone by Billy. And even in that episode, like, Jason and Zach are kind of like tee-heeing about girls, and in this episode, they're still tee-heeing about girls, and I love that.
Yeah.
But they just like sit around talking about girls.
Yeah, it's cute to see. At least it's cute to know that like their relationship is like somewhat consistent like later on.
Yeah.
I thought it was really funny at the end. Like they poke fun at like it was the very end of the episode, but I don't know if we're gonna be able to talk about it as much. There's a guy named Matt that shows up right at the very end for Kimberly.
Yeah.
And he's in the comic books. I totally forgot.
Really?
Like he existed in the show. Yeah. Well, she dates a guy named Matt Cook.
Okay.
At the beginning of Go-Go Power Rangers.
Huh.
Okay.
So there's Go-Go Power Rangers that technically starts at the end of these episodes that we're watching in this podcast episode. Because that's kind of like where it picks up. So Go-Go's like before the Green Ranger happens. So Matt Cook is like a boyfriend of Kimberly. So it was kind of fun to see that.
That's so interesting that you bring this up, Nick, because I didn't know that was a different guy. Like, I legit thought it was the uncle, and like when Jason was gagging, I'm like, Jason, that's her uncle. What are you doing?
That guy had a mullet. That guy clearly had a mullet.
No, also,
I was clearly not paying attention. Thank you for clearing that up, because I was shooketh. I was like,
Steve though was like the most NPC character ever though. Like his uncle, like he literally does. Yeah, he just says yes or no to anything, and he has sunglasses the whole time. And I'm like, you have no personality other than you can fly this plane.
Yeah,
and then he doesn't even do that.
He's also inexplicably like 8 feet tall.
Yes.
But yeah, no, I saw that scene because it was super quick too when they introduced. Did they give him a name? I don't even remember if they gave the character a name. You're saying it's Matt, but like I don't remember.
She said Matt, and I was like, I think that's Matt.
But
like,
I was so thrown off because like obviously the situation in the show becomes Tommy and Kimberly. So it's just like, who is this dude? Like, where did he?
And it's like Tommy Kimberly immediately. It's like Green with Evil. Like the next few episodes.
Yeah. So I was like,
which is after the comic, so something happens to Matt, obviously.
Yeah.
Jeez.
Well, Nick knows.
Yeah, I do.
Oh no.
Yeah, I was just like, wait, that was such a random thing to include, but I guess it's another way to just really like. It does help the characters in a way, like you pointed out. I mean, also Jason and Zach kind of, like giggling and like, teasing her, to themselves and everything. It just it gives you that sense of their friendship and also their own lives, like they are going about doing things. Because the one thing I did hear him say was he's like, oh, you landed a plane, like that's amazing. So like this was like clearly that I guess appealed to him. So
it's a cool thing to do, I guess.
Sure,
but like also. Kimberly landed an emergency landed a plane, and then saved all of her friends from getting their power sucked off.
Yeah.
They're just making fun of her at the youth center. Look at this chick. She has no game. Sure, she saved our lives, but she can't get with this dude.
Yeah, I know. That's so funny. No, I think also it's kind of like, in my opinion, this is just my opinion. Sure. So like when Jason in the beginning had a little crush on Kimberly, I'm going to still hold on to that. Like he moved to Trinity, that's fine. But I think he still had like, he's just kind of like teasing her a bit. It's like a kind of,
maybe
they all have these little flirty things going on with all of them.
Yeah.
Or they're just mean.
It might be a little bit of jealousy there.
Yeah. One thing I wanted to know, now you're mentioning, like, she landed that plane. Mm-hmm. It's so strange to me that she didn't know how to do that because she flies the pterodactyl.
Yeah, I have that in my notes too.
I did not think about that.
I didn't even think about that.
Like, why? So, like, when she's like, oh, I'm so used to these mountains, I thought it was because she flew on them next to the pterodactyl. But then we had that really cute, like, flashback. I love that, and I thought it was adorable. But I was like, oh, so what? Like,
okay.
Why
of all the Rangers, that's so funny. They could have chosen
watching this series for the first time, has she flown the pterodactyl? Because every time the pterodactyl comes out, it just goes straight into the Megazord.
Oh, right.
She has.
She doesn't fly it around at all on her own, does she?
I assume
at least not
like
yet.
Piloting it is different than like how you actually fly a plane. I don't know.
That's
it's
true.
like Alien, right?
Maybe.
So it is true because I think wasn't it in the first episode they said like it becomes intuitive because of their powers.
Yeah.
So controlling the
Maybe that's
Zords was like intuitive with the power coin or the morphin grid.
So she should have morphed while she was in the plane.
Yeah.
She could
I
have.
thought that was gonna be okay. While they were also in the plane, like
Yes.
Bulk and Skull just like knock out. I was like, oh, it's time to knock out. They just go to sleep, and then she's like talking on her communicator, and it's like, there's no way those guys are knocked out.
Yeah.
They're just like pretending.
Time to faint.
Yeah.
I love Bulk and Skull in this episode. I thought like their personalities were very personable, first of all, like very different than they were before now. But also, in like hindsight, like when you think about it, in that uncanon movie, they got over their fear of heights and flying, which is nice because the beginning starts with them like skydiving.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay.
They were still terrified to jump though, but yeah.
They were, but they weren't terrified of being in the sky.
That's
Because they're
growth.
not afraid of flying, they're afraid of crashing.
We're afraid of crashing.
Falling.
Yeah.
But I really want to say that not only in this episode, I think these like all three of these episodes, Amy Jo Johnson kills it. Like her performance in these episodes is really, really good. Like this is the first time of all the situations I've had. This is the first time I felt genuine danger and fear for her and like for the Rangers as well. Because it was like this isn't something you can just morph out of, right? She was like, oh, I gotta make sure these people are also okay. And so I was just like, oh wow, and she's really selling it, like the fear and the worry. I was very impressed with her in this episode and then in the next two as well. Like she does some really good work.
Yeah.
It is like a very hero moment for her because like she knows she can like morph and teleport out whenever she wants. So she's perfectly fine, you know, like she's perfectly okay. But the fact that she wants to stay and make sure like the people around her are okay, like okay, that's like very admirable of her.
Yeah, and ironically as well, this is like the first time like Zordon and Alpha are useful.
Yes.
In a situation that has nothing to do with the Power Rangers. Like,
Okay,
He was a little too
keep
useful.
going. I have one beef. But...
Alpha was like, you just have to press this button. I was like, Alpha, do you have a manual with you? Like, how do you know how the plane functions?
Alpha has access to the internet, pre-internet era. He just like has a database of like how to do a bunch of stuff.
He is just like an alpha-based Surrey, isn't he?
Yeah, pretty much.
Hey Siri, how do I land a plane?
Boy.
He said that he called in like
I didn't quite catch that. Could you please say that again?
Whoops.
Akil, you were saying?
he said that he called in like emergency clearance from the airport so that she could land. But then the tower is like, you don't have clearance for this. Report in. We need to know what your problem is.
No,
So sure, he knows how to fly a plane, but he probably called the wrong airport.
Yes.
No, I thought he just called like the ambulance or like emergency, you know, like not the tower itself, but the like the police I could be wrong. That's what I heard or understood.
Yeah. I heard that he called it into the airport and that there would be an ambulance waiting for them.
Right.
Which also, ambulance was not waiting for them. Took a few minutes for the ambulance to get there.
Maybe, yeah. But I did like that the control tower was like, you do not have permission to land. All right, we're going to talk about that landing. I was like, man,
we'll do it later. Nobody did anything, and like I like that. To your point, Nev, that Kimberly is clearly so stressed out. She doesn't know like how to respond. Like she's like, I'm just going to focus on landing this plane.
Yeah.
But I did make a note about Rita poisoning the uncle, making him fall asleep in the sky, which, you know, in theory is a really, really good plan. This is the second time.
That's like
that's what I wrote. Straight up
Like,
murder. Like she's like, I'm just going to make this plane crash.
I was like, oh my god, dude, she's not playing around anymore.
You know, like straight up, she's like, I'm just. But then this is also the second time that she's done something to like spike their drinks, and you would think she could just poison them like straight up at this point. Like they don't care; they're just like chugging whatever's in front of them without checking.
This is true.
This show's got a weird thing with liquids.
It does a weird thing with liquids.
Actually, one of the clips I took for, I want to post it, is Nick just basically putting out a PSA of don't drug people's drinks.
Funny.
Don't be Rita Repulsa. Don't drink people's drinks.
There wasn't like a lot of. I mean, the Power Ranger stuff was like minimal, I guess.
Very minimal.
I just want to point out the monster, right? A snake that is a lizard or a snake that's half lizard is just a lizard, right? Like,
Right?
that's what they described it as. They're like, it's half snake, half lizard. I was like, that's just a lizard, then, right? Like, there's no half snake. Like, this thing spits out snakes, but really, that's it.
Yeah,
That's so
it's
funny
leg
because when
cobras.
The cobras.
The leg cobras is what they called it. I was like, what are leg cobras? What do you mean?
When Rita was first hatching this plan, she's like, first I'm going to poison this pilot, and then I'm going to get this snizzard. Like, what was the connection there? Like, why was that the first monster?
So her idea was, if she can get rid of Kimberly, then she can handle the rest of the Power Rangers on her own. And the way she's going to do that is the Slizzard shoots Cobra arrows that if they hit the Power Rangers, they drain the Power Rangers of their powers. Which is how it was described in the show. I don't think that actually happened. I think it just kind of tangled them up with what looked like garden hoses.
Well, maybe she was also aware that this monster specifically would be defeated if you shot an arrow off its head or shot an apple off its head.
Yeah,
it's like, well, I got to get rid of the one that has the bow.
The bow, that makes sense.
Yeah, get rid of the one that has the bow. That makes sense.
It's like this monster's unstoppable. So,
Also,
except by a bow and arrow.
There was a whole period where the other Rangers got wrapped up, and then they showed all of Kimberly's stuff, and then finally she gets safe. She comes, and they're still just wrapped up. I was like, destroy them! Like, they're clearly, they're clearly in a position where you can destroy them. But I guess it just sat there like taunting them. You're like, haha, your power's being drained. I was like, they're tied up. Stomp on them. Something like just kick them, punch them.
And then Kimberly gets there, and then he calls in the putties.
And
you could have done that 5 minutes ago.
And she wrecks. Like, she wrecks everybody. Like, just on her own, just like arrows galore.
Pew, pew, pew. It was so awesome. It was like straight up Kimberly killing it.
Yeah.
The ending with Bulk and Skull, I was very upset because I was like, they didn't deserve that.
They didn't deserve it.
They didn't deserve it.
Every time they don't do anything and then they get like have food on them, it makes me legitimately upset because I'm like, why are they doing this? They were nice this episode. All they wanted to do was fly a plane.
Was that Zach hitting the drinks by accident? I forgot.
Yes. Angela had the drinks.
Yeah.
And then
I'm not convinced that they do it by accident.
Yeah, honestly, they're the bullies. Now that we're here,
we went
I
through
can
this
speak
already.
my truth. All of the Power Rangers are bullies to Bulk and Skull.
Nah.
It's like, all right, done making fun of Kimberly. Let's go pour some drinks.
Next episode proves you so wrong. Next episode proves you so
wrong.
wrong.
The regressive episode. Speaking of which, we can hop into the next episode now if you want to.
Okay.
This one, episode 15, Dark Warrior, starts away with Trini joining Jason's classes and then slowly ducking out of it. Just like, that's like,
just kind of got distracted, I guess. She's like, oh, I already know this. I'm just gonna.
Ooh, Billy.
I think she does her own kind of practice the way Jason is like constantly always, like, even the other episode opened up with him just rapid punching a punching bag.
Yeah.
Also not wearing any red in that scenario, in that scene specifically.
Oh, he was. It was tucked in his back pocket. I saw it.
Yeah, he wears like handkerchiefs. They do handkerchiefs.
All right.
Yeah.
Damn it. I thought there was
literally
literally
a studded belt though. I was like, ooh, he's going for a little punk rock.
But yeah, I think Trini was just like doing her own practice. She wasn't part of the class from what I understood. She was just like,
No, she answered no because she was doing her own, but she was doing the same moves as. So I guess she might have not been officially. She's just been like kind of
keeping informed.
Knows it.
Yeah.
Well, this was like, okay, so this was like the catalyst of why I think this episode was earlier, because it's like Billy like rejoins the class, but like he says that like off camera, and like this sort of feels like a second introductory episode for like the Power Rangers, because this is like probably the most formulaic episode that I remember it to be. You know, situation, monster, defeat monster, go big, kill the monster, come back, resolve issue. Like that's like the most episodic thing I remember. But also this felt like one of the, like, it's not really the pilot episode, but it was like, okay, like this is like the third or second, like the second or third episode.
Sure.
That this could have been. you know?
Yeah,
Because
'cause,
everyone's
like-
very like one dimensional and
Yeah.
kind of stick to their form. Like Billy being like this, I'm a nerd, and he wasn't doing his weird random words yet. You know, like he didn't use any weird random words in this episode.
And his fighting style regressed in this as well because he had learned a lot up until this point.
Yeah,
like before that, he's been a Power Ranger. There's no reason for him not to be able to like defend himself. There's really no reason.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's
Unless
it's
he's just getting in his head.
It
It's
just
like,
put me in the
it's
question of like, was this supposed to be earlier or
Mhm.
not?
Yeah.
But then the one thing that countered that was like Howard, the uncle.
Yeah.
I was like, why would they just have like a random uncle just show up out of nowhere? Which, by the way, is an absolute legend for being a scientist
And
karate
yeah.
And a
master.
martial arts master.
But I wouldn't
World
say it's out of
renowned.
nowhere. I think they because last episode was also an uncle.
That's true.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Also,
I
both
like that
had
we
to
get
be.
to know their
Era.
families.
Whoa.
Sorry?
Akil, what were you
Oh,
saying?
I was just saying we're in the uncle era of Power Rangers.
We are in the uncle era.
Uncle era.
Yeah, like we got to meet a lot of Trini's family before this already, like her cousin, and we got to see her room. Like we know more about Trini than anyone else, pretty much.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Now, what were you gonna say?
I was gonna say, like, with that episode, the last episode and this episode, for some reason they all felt the need to refer to them as Uncle name, like Uncle Steve, Uncle Howard. I was
Yeah.
Yeah.
like, just like I don't know, it was just interesting. Like Billy was calling out for Uncle Howard. I was like, he's not your uncle, bro. Like I don't know what you're doing.
I think they're all like best friends enough that they could be
Yeah.
like family. It's like how we all call everyone uncle. Right?
Yeah,
that's fair.
Out of everyone, we cannot be complaining of that.
I was just, but that's what I'm saying because I was like, they're not part of the culture, so I was confused. So I was just like,
They're,
well,
they're
oh,
embracing
okay.
Trini's culture.
So actually, okay. So here's an interesting thing. I was like so confused because like her uncle, from what I gathered, is like a karate master, right?
Yeah.
Mhm.
I don't know exactly what Trini's culture is. In the comics, it's Korean.
hmm.
Here, she has like lineage of like Chinese, but the actress is also Vietnamese,
Right.
Mhm.
and like I have this sense that like, or I had this feeling that like Howard was Japanese. I was like,
Yeah.
I feel like her identity as an Asian person in the show was like very, I don't know, like
Mishmashed.
Mhm.
Yeah, Asian TM.
mismatched. Yeah, you know what I mean. Like it just like it felt kind of weird. Like I even looked it up, like some of the things. Like,
Yeah.
am I like crazy? Like I know she's Korean in the comics.
No. Like
I
had to look it up too because Uncle Howard calls Billy Billy's son when they
Yeah.
meet.
Yes,
I'm like,
you're
oh,
right.
is he Japanese?
Mm.
Yeah.
And I had to look it up again, and I'm like, Trini, okay, Kwan is a Korean name, but the actress is Vietnamese, and the uncle is
Jeez.
Japanese.
Yeah.
Maybe
Cool.
she's mixed.
And I think
I was about it.
I
I was
think
like, hey, that's cool.
the doll thing was a Chinese tradition, if I remember
yeah,
correctly.
something
Yeah.
like
So there
that.
was a lot
so-
of they were just like Asian, just like
Trini
Asian.
is
Yeah.
Asian.
Jeez.
There was one line where where Ernie says, I was like, Ernie's a jerk. Billy's like, I wish I had moves like Jason. He's like, hey, speaking of moves, you want to take this
He's
trash out
together,
of me?
That's not his job.
Ernie's just like, hey, fuck you, kid. Whatever you say.
Can you like
Throw this out.
do this free labor, please?
That's so funny. I was laughing. I was like, speaking of moving, can you move this trash out of the way?
Oh my gosh. It's so funny. But also I love that this episode is like pretty much like Plankton from SpongeBob. Give me the secret formula like over and over again. And the funniest thing about that is the formula is not the code he wrote on the computer, but the actual jar
No,
of
it's-
goo.
It's so good. He's both an idiot and like supposed to be this
Yeah.
scientist, but also like this
He has
karate
short-term
master.
memory, and he keeps losing everything.
But also
That's
Ernie's
really
like, what's this? And then he just takes it. And he's like, I don't know. That's not FDA. You
I
can't
was
just, like-
legitimately stressed he was going to put it in someone's drink. I was
Oh,
like,
gosh.
I hope he doesn't do that because
waiting
that would
for
be freaking awful.
And
my
I
barista
just
senses went off. I was like, I would
Yeah.
never take a random liquid and be like, yeah, this is ours now.
Yeah.
I mean,
I love how Uncle Howard lost the jar in the first place. Like he put it down and then he like got up to talk to Trini. And then he's like, oh, I forgot something. Turned back around to the jar and then someone bumped into him. And he got turned around and just went to Trini.
I believe that's the most believable genius thing that can ever happen, right? Because your brain is so filled with other stuff, like you don't have time to pay attention to that stuff. Like I believe that. What I didn't really believe was Billy needing karate to be smarter.
Yeah.
No, it's the karate was teaching him like discipline and focus. Right?
I don't know.
And he's like,
I don't buy it.
use your martial arts to focus your mind like the nucleus of an atom. Or whatever he said.
This like disappearing potion too is kind of really weird because this is how we know Zordon is like full of crap. Because this disappearing potion makes you turn invisible, right? Officially we know that because at the end the uncle drinks it and turns invisible. But Zordon's like, Rita's plan is to make you drink the potion and disappear forever.
Yeah.
Whoa.
Right? It's not invisibility potion to Zordon. It's like a make you disappear out of existence potion.
So that's what I was wondering. Was that a Zordon mistake or was that a Rita mistake?
No, I just think Zordon's paranoid.
Yeah.
I think Zordon is legitimately like paranoid. Like he says like these crazy claims sometimes.
Yeah.
Like in the next episode, he says something crazy. And I'm like, what the like that's ridiculous. Like there's no way that's true.
Yeah.
But it's I feel like sometimes like every time he says something that's like insane like that, I'm like, this guy, he's scared. Like he's legitimately just scared of Rita. I would be scared of Rita. Rita's insane.
Yeah, no, she's serious business. But she's also in this episode kind of like a mom where she's like scolding them for drinking out of unlabeled bottles. And she goes, how many times have I told you not to do? How many times have they done this?
Yeah.
The poor girls, she's like, I told you not to drink those unlabeled bottles. Like, and we don't know what was in that do not touch bottle at all. Like, we don't know what happened to them. I thought that was so funny.
Yeah.
Yeah. So going to Zordon too, I think once he got kidnapped, once Uncle Howard got kidnapped, they came to him, and then he has footage of Uncle Howard doing stuff, and I was like, are you just spying on people constantly? Like, how do you have this reel to show to the Rangers of like, oh, here's the situation? Like, how? Why does that exist, Zordon?
Yeah. See, that's why I think he's paranoid, because he like pays attention to the wrong thing, like constantly. He's like, he has all this random information about things that just aren't important, and he's like, "Oh man, we didn't know that Rita was attacking today." And I'm like, "What do you mean you didn't know Rita was attacking today?"
It would be a good
Anytime
arc.
the Rangers are doing anything, you should expect an attack. Anytime.
Yeah, that would be a good arc though, if like it actually made that. If, like Zordon does stuff because he was a previous Ranger and he got caught. Like so he's like super hyper like attentive of everything.
Right.
That'd make the most sense. Yeah.
Yeah, but it's not canon at all. That's just my fan fiction.
Well, yeah, I mean,
canon.
I know, right? Because he's wrong a lot of the time.
Yeah.
Right, and it explains why Gosei sucks, right? Like, it really is all coming together.
It was just actually recently revealed in the comics that him and Zed had like a mentor relationship. So he's probably traumatized for a lot of things.
Did Zed look like that before?
No, so Zed looked like Zordon, where they were like blue people. They're basically all just like blue. Well, they're not all bald, but they're just blue people.
Okay.
And they were trying to figure out how to harness the power of the morphing grid. And Zed was his mentor, and then was like overzealous and trying to like gain the power of the morphing grid, and because of that turned into what he looks like now.
Ooh, that's very Skeletor, right?
Yeah.
A very similar story. I love that. Was he sexy in his blue form?
Yeah,
because
he was absolutely.
he's sexy in his after form. I just like need to know.
Everybody in Power Ranger, Rita, hot. Zordon, hot. Everybody's just hot in the comics for some reason. So especially the villains, like they're all just crazy attractive.
That does actually give your point, Nick, more credence, because if we take like the 2017, or maybe it's even in the comics, if we take that part as canon, Zordon and Rita also having a falling out, right? So Zordon and Zed have a falling out, Zordon and Rita have a falling out. It kind of actually validates your point of like, he's just like, I'm not risking anything. Like, just gotta watch what is going on, who's doing what. Oh, like squat stepped on Earth. What is he doing? I don't care.
Yeah.
It's just like, yeah. So
Well,
But you know, it's canon in MMPR too, without like a movie and stuff, that Rita and Zordon have a history, because Rita is the one who trapped him.
Well, yeah, I know they have a history, but
Yeah.
I don't know if Rita was a ranger in like MMPR.
Oh yes, yeah.
canon.
Right, you're talking about the whole mentor kind of like betrayal.
Yeah, because she was a ranger in the 2017 movie. I don't know if that has ever been like made somewhat canon or anything, but they obviously had a relationship. They've talked about it in the show a bunch. But so either way, yeah.
That's
have any other
neat.
thoughts for this episode? Because I'm like really excited to talk about the next
Okay,
one.
yeah, we can move on to the next episode.
Okay.
This one was actually short, not much happened. Pretty like standard stuff.
The one thing I want to talk about though, because this was wild, and maybe it goes to your points of like it's meant to be an earlier episode at the end. So they're celebrating Billy, and then Bulk and Skull walk by, and Bulk like smacks Trini on the shoulder or something. Like there's a sound, and like then she's like, "Hey," and she reacts. So I was like, "Did he just like hit her on the shoulder?" I don't know.
Sure.
Yeah, it was very weird. But like it didn't come off that way, because then they went to bully Billy, which also was weird because Jason's like, he got this, but then they're like, he doesn't have this. Billy doesn't, and Jason, they're just watching. And I'm just like, what are you doing? Go help him.
Okay. Yeah, when Uncle Howard drank the invisible potion, I was like, I'm questioning this man now because he's a fully grown adult. I was like, I'm gonna go assault these teenagers while I'm invisible.
Yes, actually, I made that note too. He straight up is beating up kids, like straight up. Yeah, the kids suck in this episode, but you can't just go around beating up kids.
Yeah.
Like, you just can't do that.
It's like the reverse. You guys ever watch the new Karate Kid? Where Mr. Hong like beats up. Well, he doesn't beat up the kids, but like he just. I watched that scene. I was like, man, he really messed up this kid.
But that's like every martial arts mentor movie. They always beat up kids at some point.
Yeah, it's part of the. It's part of the brand.
Really shouldn't. Yeah.
Yeah.
But, man, no, definitely good point. I'm glad you brought that up, Nev, because that definitely bothered me too. But yeah, moving on to Dark Warrior, episode 15. No, this is switching places. Episode
you
16.
switched the places of the episode.
I did switch the places of the episode, switching places. Starting with somebody sneaking into Billy's office and like switching up the machines. So we know that Rita's henchmen are not as stupid as Rita makes them out to be, because they understand how Billy's machines work, which, as we know, a lot of people don't, right? Yeah. So they know to mess with the machine and what it does and whatnot. So we're starting off strong here. But then Bulk and Skull are also like, again, we're going back. This is why the second episode was kind of like out of place, because now we're going back to them just kind of like hanging around, watching what the Rangers are doing. Right.
Watching Kimberly specifically.
Yeah, I think like Skull even goes, "Can I think about Kimberly?"
Yeah.
Right. So it's like,
why are they outside Billy's house?
Because that's where Kimberly is.
That's so creepy.
It's a little weird.
So creepy. Like
weird.
It's very weird.
I have a counter
counter
argument. Maybe it's because Billy in the comics, Billy and Skull were like childhood friends.
Mm-hmm.
So maybe that's a little thing.
Maybe
and it's kind of
right. You don't know.
Well, at the end, he's like, "Can I borrow your brain for like this next test?" And I was like, "Oh, look, there's like kind of a little thing there. Maybe he's like asking an old friend for a favor."
Yeah.
That's
weird, man. They were just outside.
Yeah, it is a bit weird, but I feel like they are getting more comfortable with like asking the Rangers for stuff instead of pushing them around for stuff. Like they're more like having conversational. It is weird that they were parked outside the house, just like looking at him doing stuff in the garage, right? Like,
that is weird.
Yeah, but I wonder if they just like live there, right? Like they do all go to the same school and whatnot. Like I can believe it.
They could have just been like walking through the neighborhood and be like, "Oh, what's going on in this garage? Let's check it out."
Yeah, just like loitering. Yeah.
Yeah, what's going on behind this flying car?
You're right. I love how Billy's machine too. He made it not so to make it general size. He made it so this is for Kimberly and me.
This is specifically for Kimberly and I.
And there's a little connection in the outline, so it's literally a Billy Kimberly hand holding machine. That's all it's good for.
It was so good. And this is the second time where we had kind of somebody mess with Billy and Kimberly's brain specifically. Because Power Punks also, you can technically argue that was like a brain mess up. And this one also is. And I think the kind of dynamic between Kimberly and Billy is so perfect for it because they're so opposites on the spectrum. But I did want to make a note of, so obviously it's funny that Billy was messing up Kimberly's fashion and stuff, right? But the way Kimberly made Billy dress was so chic and nice, but still very male. Like she knew how to like fashionably dress up someone, like when she just like in the opposite gender. Like she was just like, she's got this. He looks so adorable and cleaned up. I thought that was a nice like little note that people really made for Kimberly, which you wouldn't really think about, right?
Even when she's Billy, she cares about how she looks.
Yeah.
And Billy cared about how he looked when he was Kimberly with the makeup, and he tried.
He did try.
He tried real hard.
He wore Billy clothes, though.
He did wear Billy. I thought it worked. I liked it.
She looks so cute in this episode. And again, what you were saying, Nev, like Amy Jo Johnson's acting in this episode was top tier. Like her little makeup mess up was so adorable. I love that. I mean, she kept that on for the whole day. She didn't even wipe it off her face. She just looked like that all day.
Yeah. No, I was like honestly super convinced that like they'd switched bodies. Like obviously really I'm like obviously not, but like they do it so well, especially Amy Jo Johnson. She plays it so well. Like she changes her voice a little too to talk like Billy, where I'm just like, oh shoot, like did this really happen? Like I started to suspend disbelief. I'm like, damn, she's really good at like portraying this Billy. Like she must have observed Billy a lot. Like I don't know, because it was like really well done. The writers, I guess, give credit to the writers and Amy Jo Johnson for the way they wrote Kimberly's dialogue, because she just made it feel so like genuine within the universe that they actually switched bodies. That was because Billy did okay. Like David Yost did good, but like maybe it's just there's more to play with Billy because he's like so over the top nerdy. And Kimberly, like she's Valley Girl, but she's not like it's not as much. I feel so. But
I feel like Billy played Kimberly a little bit stereotypical, like more stereotypical than she is.
Yeah. So the one detriment to the writers on this episode was like, I know Billy's a big brain computer nerd, right? Like that part's correct. Where was I supposed to know that like Kimberly is like an econ, like a home economics like master?
Yeah, like, that seems more like Trini speed.
Well, even then, it just felt like, this is what women do. Like here, this is let's showcase
like you're showing they are doing like a gymnastic lesson.
Yeah,
that would have been more true. But I think the thing is, they were in school, right? So I think they were trying to find what. They were in their classroom.
Billy was in school. Billy was in a garage somewhere.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, he was like.
I didn't think he was in the garage. I thought it was the IT room.
I don't know.
Have you seen the IT rooms in schools? They are like dinky. Like they're not great.
I thought it was the garage, honestly.
Yeah.
I was like, who's this kid?
Who is this kid?
It's not William. Who is this?
It's not William.
That
would have made sense if that was William.
Right. Yeah, because it was a kid.
Yeah,
that was weird. Yeah, I guess they could have
Kimberly was in school. Billy was hanging out with a child in his home.
I guess he was tutoring. That's what it seemed like. But
it seemed like tutoring. So, like,
but then
maybe
he gets back to school right after.
Right,
so I think it was in the school. Like for me, it doesn't make sense for him to like, because they're like in school after when they're like
so
spending the day.
It's possible. Yeah. You're right.
K-12. So
why did they take so long to tell them like, hey, our bodies just switched? They had to have this whole conversation in the hallway with one another, and everyone's like, "What's going on?" I was like, "Oh, we've switched bodies." I was like, "Oh yeah, average day."
They just didn't see each other. Like they did it in the morning, then they're like, "Oh, gotta go to class."
Yeah,
that's true. Maybe
can't skip school today. Definitely not an emergency.
Yeah,
that's so funny. I also thought it was. I know it's like a very gag thing that Power Ranger does. But what code did Kimberly put in there that made the computer explode?
I have no
I don't know.
She pushed one button, right?
Yeah.
And the kid was like, why did you push that button? Yeah. Why would you push the explode computer button?
That was like really funny to me. It's like the fact that she made a computer explode. I don't know why that was like hilarious to me.
Yeah, but
really-
also it mirrored like Billy making his like souffle explode.
Yeah.
Right, they had
Yeah,
a
I
kind
guess
of
that's
similar
the
thing,
point.
which also like nothing explodes like that. It's like this little
No,
bubble.
They're just
Yeah.
so catastrophically bad at beating each other.
Yeah.
Yeah,
No, what made me laugh though was again the little mannerisms. Like Billy pushes his hair behind his ear. I was like, first of all, there's not
Yes.
really anything to push, but sure. I just
It's
like
just,
that he
like,
did it.
instinctual,
Yeah.
yeah.
And then Kimberly, I guess Billy as Kimberly still needs glasses. I don't know how the brain swapping
Yeah.
works, but I was like, well, why does Kim need glasses? Like,
That's a very like TV trope.
I know,
Every time
yeah.
there's like a body switch, it's like one of them's wearing glasses, and they always take the glasses back. It's like, is it a psychological thing, your vision thing? Like, is it,
Yeah.
yeah. But like
It makes
adjusting
me
the
like
glasses was-
convinced they're wearing it for fashion.
right?
It's like Bulk and Skull's little like airplane hat.
Which he's still
Bulk-
wearing.
He's still wearing. Bulk and Skull did a good job also of switching leg. I believe that they are also in each other, but because both
yeah.
of them are so archetypal, I feel like it's easier.
Mhm.
But yeah, like Bulk did Skull's laugh like very, very
Yes, on point.
yeah.
Yeah, I definitely thought Bulk played Skull better. Not that Skull didn't do a good job, but I guess there's less to do. Like
Yeah.
less about Bulk that stands out. You know,
Right.
especially because in the Skull body, because like in Bulk he's a bigger dude, so trying to walk like he was trying to walk like Bulk, but I'm like, but it doesn't work because it's a different
Yeah,
body
he's so
type
lanky.
completely, so
Yeah.
it's a little, you know. But like Skull has the gum chewing and his eyes are kind of in the laugh and stuff like that. So
Yeah.
it was more evident in Bulk than it was in Skull. But yeah, they both did good.
They did both do good. Going on to the monster fight,
that thing.
and I think Nuv and I were talking about this a little bit earlier, that this episode they stretched it out as if they didn't have enough time
Yeah.
because or enough footage, because so much of it was like morphing sequence, sword sequence, and it's like, but we could have had so much more body switching like antics.
Yeah.
So I thought that was strange, but I also thought it was funny that Rita teleported down to Earth, which means she doesn't need a unicycle.
Yeah.
He never did.
She
She
was
just
in a
did
lot
it
of
for the
things.
style.
And she just wanted it for the style points.
It's
Didn't
just like
she-
unicycle.
Didn't she not even use her wand this episode to grow the monster?
Nah, it was like it was like a laser or something.
Right.
Yeah, she like
because-
zapped it. Yeah,
Yeah, so,
it
I mean, I
was
guess
her
it's-
wand technically,
okay.
but it was like it
She
wasn't
didn't
like
throw it.
yeah, it was like zappy. And then this is the first time she like actually physically attacked the Rangers, like
Yeah.
by herself. Like she zapped the Rangers as well.
Was she on
Which
the
was-
floor? Or was she still
No, she was on
Like-
some
she was still
mountain
elevated,
cliff
yeah.
or
Oh, man.
whatever.
Okay, got it.
She refuses to
making
touch
sure.
the damn ground.
She never touches the ground.
But
no.
there was something else for me that was really like, it's a small detail, but it's big for me. Like, they finally are doing the morphing calls the way I remember them. Because like the first few episodes, they'd be like Tyrannosaurus, like no energy. But now they've like, I guess, found the rhythm and the cadence and the energy. And so like everybody's like doing it with a proper, not yelling, but just like giving that energy with their morphing call. And I was like,
Yeah.
oh, this feels right. This feels, because like for the first few
Yeah.
episodes, I was like, this is so weird. But they're just like, it's morphin time. I was like, no, it's gotta be like, it's morphin time.
It's
Like,
morphin time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So there was that, and then we still don't have like the proper Goldar voice. I've noticed that
Yeah,
Goldar's
yeah.
voice is, but we do get it in the green with Evil Saga. I know that, so I'm like, because Goldar's voice is to me like super iconic, and like he in one episode just taunts Jason in the green with Evil Saga, like, and it's just great. Like hearing his voice taunting Jason's the best. So I was just noting like, oh, I think it changed. Like it's getting there. So it's maybe a work in progress for them to figure out what his voice, what they want it to be. But I still noticed like in this episode, he hasn't talked too much to be fair, but yeah.
Yeah.
So this was also the episode where I started to develop my theory that like Zordon is just paranoid. Because he starts talking about the grid, like the morphing grid, like a lot.
Yep.
He's like,
Yeah.
I could feel a disturbance in the morphing grid, which I thought was a funny line. But also he's like, yo, don't put too much power into trying to destroy this lamp, or you're gonna destroy the morphing grid. And I was like, destroy the morphing grid.
Yeah, I destroyed
Like,
the Rangers along with it.
thing? I was like, the whole thing? Like, we're talking about like from what I understand, the morphing grid, it's like basically the energy of the Big Bang. Like the beginning of the universe sort of energy is like, yeah, you're just gonna destroy it if you try to destroy this lamp. I was like, that's extreme, Zordon.
No.
It is some extreme. And the worst part is, as soon as he said that, Jason is like, we also need to take more energy from the grid.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh, so is this gonna like really muck up? But then nothing happens, right?
Well, I swear Jason just said a bunch of mumbo jumbo. Like, he just said like we need to extract more power from the morphing grid, and then he said something else.
He's never done that before.
Yeah, I was like, you don't know. Jason doesn't know anything about the morphing grid. Yeah. I love Jason, but he has no idea what that is.
Jason,
just for a split second, he's like, maybe I switched brains with Billy. Let me say something.
Yeah, Jason to his core is a himbo, right? Like, there's no reason for him to like know all this information. But also, like, this whole fight sequence was so messy, almost. Like, they're fighting. Zordon teleports them just to have a conversation.
Yeah,
and then teleports them back.
They got hit
like
twice.
Everything they say is gonna happen. Nothing happens. Like.
It's so funny because he teleported them to Goldar, they got messed up, and then he teleported them to the genie, and then he got messed up, and then he teleported them back, and he's like, see, look how much danger there's going on already. He just literally sent these kids to get beat up and then bring them back and be like, all right, guys, what's the plan?
Yeah, I like how he sent him to the wrong place too. Like, the genie has been on Earth for a while. Like, he doesn't have all the knowledge in the world, clearly.
Yeah.
Like,
that part got me too, where I was like, they got hit, I think, like twice, and they're like, he's too powerful, bring them back. And I was like, well, how? Like, that didn't prove anything. They didn't try their weapons. They didn't do, like, any combat. Like, they just, 2 shots, and oh, wait, no, he's too powerful. But we're going to send you back out anyway, because...
It's so funny because it was so jarring because I don't know, I'm so used to like you can't fast travel while enemies are nearby, right? Like,
yeah.
I was like, oh, you can just leave, like you can just leave whenever you want.
Yeah. It was also they didn't defeat the monsters. Alpha just destroys the lamp, and the monster goes with it. They're like, oh, I guess destroying the lamp destroys the monster. That's it.
Do we know where this lamp?
So you could have just not gone out. You could, because the monster wasn't doing damage, right? The monster was just waiting for the Rangers, it seemed. So you could just stay at the command center. Billy probably could have figured out how to get that lamp out. And it would have been good.
It would have been good. And also, I don't know, Nick, to answer your question, if they know where
I think Rita just had it.
Yeah.
Right.
She just had it from a previous adventure.
Well, okay, so the body
switching
thing, it was fun while they were like out of being Rangers, but I wanted to see that like dynamic while they were Rangers, right? Like they got into each other's Zords. It's like, does that thing happen where like, I don't really know how to pilot your Zord.
Yeah.
I know how to pilot my Zord, and it's like it would be so funny, like it's the same exact controls. It's like, it would have been cool to explore those kind of ideas. And they kind of do it a little bit.
Yeah, they mention it, but they don't like do anything with it.
Yeah. Exactly.
Yeah.
Well, Kim also, I think it was Kim. She's like, Kim here. I mean, Billy. I'm like, no, but you are Kim. Like, you are.
That was strange.
Billy just didn't give a fuck. He's like, online. What did he say? He said like Billy online. Which I don't think he's ever said ever. I think he was just over it.
That's so funny. Yeah. I also didn't notice how much time they say nominal more than they say more phenomenal, right?
Yeah.
Like. That is more their word, so I don't know why we don't remember that. But going back to what you were saying, Nick, in the last episode, why didn't they just kill them so the drill is literally like going. They don't even touch the glass.
Yeah.
While we're waiting for Alpha to destroy the bottle, I was like, these guys are gonna get wrecked. Like if they put that drill into their the glass is gonna shatter.
Yeah.
It didn't even touch them by the time. No. Alpha destroyed it. Like, what were you doing? Just like intimidating the Rangers?
Alpha was like
warming up.
I was like, I don't know if they even have a few more seconds, because Zordon was like, it's only a few more seconds. He's like, I don't know if they have a few more seconds. I was like, I mean, I think they do. They're pretty like, the monster's not doing anything.
Yeah, he's just like teasing them.
There's something I noticed, like when Alpha was moving. I don't know why, like Alpha was like moving in this like weird. You know what I mean? Like I'm used to seeing Alpha, but like the way that Alpha was moving in that last scene, he was like, "We gotta stop the Rangers!" He's waving his hand.
Yeah.
I was like, "Whoa, he's trying to drop a fat beat right now."
Yeah.
I think
That's what he's learning from Zach.
I think it's just that's like maybe this is the one episode where we spend more time looking at Alpha than we do in other episodes because like the Rangers are just down, so it's like, oh, we got to take care of the lamp, so it's constant shots of Alpha, so you notice it more. Because I noticed it too. I was like, does he always do this? Like, is
he always moving like this?
There's a part where he was like shaking his waist too.
Little shimmy.
Does Kimberly actually say like the word like all the time? I don't think so, right?
She does in the early episodes.
Okay.
Yeah, I noticed that before only because I'm like, oh, they're really making her archetypal 90s kind of Valley girl. She does it a lot in episode 1. I think she does it less as the episodes progress, but she does say it here or there.
Okay. Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
Because I was like, I don't remember actually like I feel like it was too much, you know, like it was like taking way too much.
I definitely think he did it too much. Like she doesn't do it as much as Billy does it, but she does say it more than everyone else.
I guess kind of going back to what you were saying, that's one of the few things that maybe distinguish Kim, right? Like Billy has all these things because they've given him all these quirks and these traits, whereas Kimberly doesn't have as many like overt traits that you can like pinpoint like, okay, that's Kimberly, right? You know, so like I guess saying like was that one thing, so it's like just overdo it, just every other sentence like this, like what?
Yeah. I wonder if they got shy changing their clothes.
Maybe.
I don't know. Like it's just something I think about sometimes. Like especially Billy, right?
I do know that they almost got burned when they were doing the mind thing. When they were doing the mind switch scene, I think Amy Jo Johnson and David Yost almost got burned for the pyrotechnics. Maybe that's why. I don't know. Maybe that attributes to their behavior. But I mean, like I think we brought this up in the last couple episodes where it's like they all do their own stunts, so it's not surprising that they were like in there next to the pyrotechnics. But like doing your own flip is different than like being next to fire and being caught on fire.
It is different. And you know what's interesting that you bring that up? Going back to the last episode, I made a note of it, but I forgot until you just mentioned it. I think that this is the first time they used a stunt double for the uncle.
Yes.
And I was like, that's shocking. Like I've never seen them do that up to this point. Which was like out of blue, and you could tell it was a stunt double.
Did Bulk and Skull get stunt doubles later?
No.
Did they? Okay. So
they don't. Yeah, which is crazy because I remember them specifically talking about it in the panels, where stuff that looks like stunt double stuff is not.
Right.
Yeah, like I know I mentioned this in Zeo, where there's one time where Skull gets like flipped off a horse. That actually happened, but it looks like a stunt double because they cut away at the wrong time and then came back, so it looked like they switched it out. But it actually just was he fell off the horse.
Oh man.
Yeah.
Damn.
They must have probably had fun having this episode though, like playing each other.
I think so.
Yeah, I feel like I always hear actors like it's always fun to like get out of your comfort zone.
Yeah.
Like the Power Punks episode was a lot of fun. This one's a lot of fun because you get to see like their portrayal of each other, and I think that's always fun.
I think it's nice. Kimberly and Billy are so good for this. I think it's just perfect for these characters. I noticed we had a lot of Billy episodes and a lot of Kimberly episodes. We've had like almost no Jason episodes.
Yeah.
And one Zach episode.
Yeah.
It's
one Jason and one Zach.
Argue the next 5.
Right. As I say, Jason's pretty prominent in the next set of episodes.
So I watched the episodes, and then like I was like, okay, I'm gonna take a nap today, and I just left it on because I'm like, I gotta watch these episodes anyway. And like I just remember there's like one scene where Jason's just like beating up a sandbag.
Oh yeah,
I can't get the cremation out of my mind. I'm like, whoa.
Well, there's a whole you know what because this is
we're gonna wait.
I think it's episode 3. I'm not gonna talk about it, but I think it's episode 3. I just love what they do with Jason in that episode. So there is a lot of focus on Jason in these next few episodes.
Yeah.
But you're right. I was thinking the same thing too. Like especially watching 3 episodes in a row, I was like, one is kind of a Kimberly centric episode, one's a Billy centric episode, and the other is the two of them.
Yeah.
What is that about?
Yeah, what is that about? And giving that, like, we have so little up until this point, maybe it's because I already know what's going to happen with them. I still have such a fondness for Jason. Every time he's on screen, I'm so happy for no reason. I'm just like so excited to see him. I'm like, oh, Jason, you're here. Yay. Even though he does nothing except punch things. Right? Like,
Yeah.
Does that dynamic change after Tommy comes in?
I think so.
Yeah. Everything
Yeah.
kind of changes after Tommy comes in. Like, he has to pretty much be a different person because now he's fighting for leadership pretty much.
Right.
So, yeah, I think, like, he kind of takes it for granted this time. He's very
Right.
cocky. He's like, whatever. They're going to follow me anyways. But then when Tommy comes, he's like, ah, shit. I gotta get my shit together.
It's unmatched.
Akil, as someone who's like never watched Power, like, because the Green Ranger and Tommy as a character is like the most like iconic Ranger like in the
Mhm.
franchise.
Mhm.
What do you know about Tommy, and like what are your thoughts, like just like off the top of your head?
I'm assuming, so I come from a Lego background. I'm assuming this is like Ninjago, where the Green Knight also is the White Knight. It also is the most powerful. Is also the son of the bad guy.
Is that real?
That's
Like-
literally Ninjago? Okay.
The Green Ninja is the White Ninja. Is also the Golden Dragon. Is also the son of the main bad guy.
Wow.
That is
There's a lot
very,
of parallels.
Yeah, that is very close.
Yeah.
This is like Bionicle
So
War.
so in the Sentai, the Green
Uh-huh.
Ranger is Rita's son.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Not the American though, but
Yeah.
they're still very. He is the white. He is the green.
Yeah.
But
That
he
is
is.
the thing.
It is like
it's never like stated ever, but a lot of people will argue. I mean, I guess it kind of is stated with one of the more recent seasons, and they give him this ridiculous morpher. But like, yeah, I guess I don't think he's the strongest, but a lot of people would probably argue he is the strongest. So that's why I was like, oh, that's not too far off, because like
It's not too far off.
he's
he's
super
like the longest running Ranger, I think.
Yes.
And then he's the one, since he's so iconic, he came back for one season, like one dedicated season, Dino Thunder. And then every time there was like a legacy event, like he showed up. He would
he's
show
come
Yeah.
back a bunch.
Okay.
Yeah.
So the actor Jason David Frank kind of carried the Power Rangers banner like his whole career pretty much. Like everybody else kind of, once they left, they just did their own thing, whatever it was. But he was always like, I am the Green Ranger, I am a Power Ranger, and like he was probably the first one to really go to cons and do stuff like that. Like he's very pivotal to like the success and continued growth of Power Rangers.
Okay.
Like that's why most people like they just love Tommy and view him as their favorite. And I totally get it. He's not my favorite, but like
He's not my favorite
Yeah.
either, but I get it as well.
yeah, I understand it because
Yeah.
he's the longest lasting. He shows up again and again and again.
Yeah.
So and like he is super powerful. I'm not going to deny that. But yeah.
He is super. Four colors. The only one who even comes close is Bridge, and I think it's more impressive with Bridge because he's only one season.
And you have to earn those positions. It's not like
You do have to earn those
know,
positions.
Not that Tommy
Yeah.
didn't earn it, but like they have a
Yeah.
whole military organization, so you have to actually move up the rank.
Yeah.
Okay, now that
And
you bring up
Bridge
the
is so silly.
now that you bring up the Ninjago thing, where he's like, you said the Green Ninja is also the White Ninja,
Yeah.
and he's also the what is it?
The Golden Dragon.
Yeah.
you see
Isn't
all
that
of those, and it's like that's basically what Tommy
Tommy.
is.
It's close.
He's,
It's really close. Yeah.
he's
It is
literally well, the first two, like green to white. It's
Yeah.
like there's no way that's not
Yeah.
not actually
and
a
a dragon, right?
and
So,
a dragon.
yeah.
Yeah.
I, for one, am looking forward to the next 5 episodes where we get to meet Lloyd Garmadon.
The Lloyd. I'm excited
Right.
too.
that the
It's gonna
character's
be
name?
so.
What is
so
that?
good.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
That's the
from
Green Ninja.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I was like,
that's
what?
where that comes from?
That is from- Listen, I watched Ninjago, and it's such a good movie. I think like it's so fun, and Akil is right. It is very like similar to Power Rangers, but also very different. Like they, like it's like Power Rangers Ninjetti. Best explained.
We should do a bonus episode where we watch the Ninjago.
Ninjago, I'm down.
Ninjago.
I'll do it.
Yeah.
Sure.
It is so good.
There is a
But-
death battle that does exist between the Green Ranger and Lloyd Garmadon.
Wait, that's so funny.
So
Oh,
a
man.
Google search. There you go.
Oh no.
There's something to look
That's-
forward to.
That is something to look forward to. Oh my gosh. So I guess we can like end it off. Final thoughts on this episode. The Power Rangers are bullies to Bulk and Skull again, where they were gonna leave them in their own bodies.
Yeah, they're like Billy was like, no, I don't think I want
Straight
that.
up. We're just gonna leave them like that.
Didn't
Why?
I think Zach
Trini
is the
also-
reasonable one here.
I think Trini was like, "Oh, we'll teach them a lesson." And I was like, "Oh, Trini."
Yeah.
When
Yeah,
Trini
like-
said it, I was like, yeah, leave him alone. leave him as it is.
Yeah. But Zach came in and
Trini
he's
can
like,
do
no,
no
they've
wrong.
learned their lesson.
Yeah, Zach is
Like,
a good guy today.
I don't want a lawsuit. They've learned their lesson.
Can you imagine if Zach didn't come in, they just have to live the rest of their lives just body switched?
I'm sure they'd be fine with
You
that.
see Jason in the corner, like recapping what he said in the Megazord. He's like, what's happened to the Morphin Grid? But that didn't work.
Yeah.
He was pretty irrelevant this episode, honestly.
He was.
Like actually, I guess everybody other than the two were pretty irrelevant. Like,
Yeah.
no one else
Yeah.
had anything going on.
I think there was one point I was like watching Trini. I was like, is she gonna say anything this episode? I was like, what? She's gotta
Did
say
she say
something.
anything this episode? Oh, she asked if they were okay.
Yeah.
Yeah,
When
yeah.
they
Yeah.
spotted
She
you.
That's
also
about
like what was it? I think she translated one more time as well. Like she was like, "Oh, Billy, you're in," or like, "Yeah, Kimberly, are you
Oh,
in?"
okay.
When like
Yeah.
and yeah,
Yeah.
but she said very little,
Let's say very
maybe
little.
3 lines.
You gotta wonder about how like their conversations go. So like Akil said, the way they were talking to each other after they haven't seen each other all day. But in the very first episode we watched, Kimberly's on the phone and goes, "Put the phone back to Trini," meaning she was already talking to Trini. She's talking to her friends, and then she goes, I'm going flying with my uncle." Well, what were you talking about before?
Not that.
Not that like, but you know what? Fine. Like maybe she was just excited talking about other stuff. But it's so funny because that feels like the important thing that's happening.
Right. The first thing, like, "Hey, I'm at this airfield about to go in a plane with my uncle Steve," and then go talk about whatever else. All
Talk about
right.
other stuff, and
But-
then be like, "Put Kimberly back on."
It's like
I'll put
anytime I
Trini
call
back
my
on.
grandparents, I'll be like, I was like, hey, you guys gonna be home this weekend? I'm like, yeah, okay, cool. It's like, where are you guys right now? It's like, we're at the hospital. I was like, oh, okay. Cool. That'd be nice to know.
Say that first.
That first. Everything okay? I was like, yeah, it's fine. I was like, okay. I'll see you this weekend.
Maybe that's what it's
That's
like.
so crazy and stressful.
It is,
I feel
isn't
bad
it?
for you.
Yeah.
My gosh. But
Uh.
that concludes this week's episode of Once a Ranger. Tune in next time for the much anticipated Green with Evil series. It'll be a longer episode, more than an hour, so strap in. We're excited. I'm Minhas. I'm joined with Nuv, Nick, and Akil, and this has been Once a Ranger.
Bye.
Once a Ranger,
Always a Ranger.